JDI3 Productions.
Hey, James David Ray the third here, and I got something a little different this time. During some downtime, I've been learning Blender and 3D rendering and animation just for fun. I've always been interested in visual arts, and this is just another step in that journey. Um, but of course, I'm a sound person. I make noise for a living, and I couldn't just let this animation go without any sound. So, after I rendered this simple animation of a avatar of myself coming into screen and doing a fancy little dance and jump, I thought, well, what's better than to take it to the next level and add some audio, right? We all know that sound elevates a picture, so let's do that with this, right? To do this, I'm going to use a simple setup in my Pro Tools. I've imported my sound design tracks, but I've just kept my Krotos Studio Pro track and my mono and stereo record tracks. We're going to be using Krotos Studio Pro just to do this whole thing. I mean, the animation itself lasts a total of 19 seconds and 16 frames at 30 frames per second. We don't have to get too crazy with this. Looking at it real quick, I know I'm going to want some ambience. I'm going to want something for the light turning on, and I'm going to want some footsteps and some cloths. Let's set up a couple quick tracks underneath the video. We'll set up 3 mono tracks for footsteps. We'll set up 2 stereo tracks for ambiances or backgrounds, a mono track for some rustle, and let's set up 4 stereo tracks for sound design or something for that light turning on sort of thing, right? And we'll shrink those down at the moment. Let's take a look at Krotos Studio Pro. So the first thing I always start with is ambiances. Krotos Studio Pro comes with a great set of ambiances already loaded in it that you can use as presets. But of course, that's not the JDR3 way. I've had to go through and make my own ambience. So if you go under the menu here, you can go to Load User Preset Bundle. And this is great because you can actually export your presets that you make with your sounds in Krotos Studio Pro and share them with colleagues. We can go here, and I'm just going to pop up a couple things and go to a preset pack I've already made, and I'm going to go to the room ventilation one because I think it's a neat sounding one that we can use, mainly because it's very nondescript. These are different rooms that I've recorded the ventilation in, and they just kind of add that air ambience to stuff. So we can go ahead and start playing it and come up with what we think might be an interesting texture. And because it's my own preset, I've set it up with macros that allow you to change the pitch of each one of these tabs, making it unique each time. Let's do this little mix like this. Kind of like that. It's kind of dystopian, kind of nondescript. We don't really need it for much, just to act as a glue. And you know, we can see that it's doing the performance record down here, and it's been going for way longer than our animation, but we don't really need that. If we stop that and go to the render tab here, we could put in how long we want it to be. So, you know, just for safety's sake, even though the animation is only 19 seconds, let's go ahead and make this 30 seconds, hit enter, and then we can hit render. There we go. And we can either pull in the stems, which will pull in each one of these 4 things, or we could pull in the full mix. In this case, I'm just going to pull in the full mix and pop it on my background track. And I can just pull it up and drag it over to Pro Tools track that I have labeled BGs. Give it a second to calculate. Boom. There's our room ventilation. I can highlight my video track and trim it to space. Done. If we take that, close down, take a quick listen, because why not? And we'll knock down the clip gain a little bit because we don't need our ventilation to be that loud. Great. My room ambience is done. Next thing I want to do is the obvious of footsteps. Now, normally I would love to hire a Foley artist to do this. They will add such nuance and texture to it that I just cannot do. But in this case, since I'm just sort of playing around and I just want to see what I can do and make this come more alive, I'm going to go here. You can just search for sneaker and take sneaker Foley. Let's go sneakers indoors. In the sneaker preset, you can see that we have a couple of surfaces here that we can mix between. I think for this reflective surface, I'm going to head towards tile. And I could sit here and I could click every time like that, right? I could just click here. I can move it around if I wanted to. Go to the different ones. But what I lose there is I lose the scuff and the stop without having to move my mouse all the way over here. But if you notice, scuff and stop have MIDI notes, C#3 and D3. So if I don't have a keyboard easily available, but I'm in Pro Tools, I can quickly call up a built-in keyboard that automatically comes up at octave 3, which is great because C3 is the main trigger for Krotos Studio. And if I use A, I have to have my track selected. But here I go. I can do my footsteps, right? If I do W, it's the scuff. And if I do S, it's the stop for D3. And I can easily go through and do this. So I'm going to put on a little bit of a pre-roll because I like having pre-roll going. And let's go ahead and just give this a whirl, throw ourselves into record. Why not? Well, why not is because I don't have a track ready to record. So let's go down to what I call my mono sound design, and we're just going to call this footsteps just for ease right now. Put this into record. Make sure we highlight our Krotos Studio track and go into actual record. Sort of play through this. All right, quick and easy, not perfect, no, but it's doing the job of what I need, and I'll probably go back through and just edit that up to clean it up a little bit, just like I normally would with footsteps. But let's move on, get this done. Next thing I want to add is a little clothing rustle in here, just adding that liveness to it, you know. So again, we're going to go through and pull up Krotos Studio Pro and clear out that last search I did and look up something like I think jeans might be a good one. And they have this preset called jeans, and it's labeled AI. It is not generative AI. What it is it's based off of the Reformer engine. If you remember Reformer Pro, which is also a great tool brought by Krotos, but this is built into Krotos Studio Pro. And what it does is it gives you these options here of different samples. If we look under the hood, we have 7 samples loaded into a Reformer engine in here. And these samples are then analyzed and broken up into their parts of how their amplitude is and their frequency is to be performed. So we can just sort of lower down here is less, up here is more, right? So we could just sort of click throughout this. And so let's go ahead and give this a shot. Again, we can go over to our track here and say, hey, let's call this Russell Record. Why not? There we go. And go back up here and go into record. Just do a little Russell pass here. A little click in, a little click. There we go. Let's pop that up onto Russell. Great. Now, last thing that I want to do is, you know, as our character walks in, this sort of spotlight comes on, you know, right? Boom. All right. So let's go and let's look up something cinematic. Dun, dun, dun. And these are great. These are those sort of over the top impacts and hits and whatnot. And we could do something like maybe metal hit. Maybe this will be something cool. And with the metal hit, we get, that might be cool. That might be cool. So we could go ahead and play through. And this one we're going to do in stereo. So come down here and we'll leave this track called JDR Sound Design. Put that into record. Go ahead and see if we can get that in one take. right, that kind of works for me. Now, of course, I didn't have to record these in this way. I could have just used the record path from Krotos Studio Pro and dragged them in. Quickly go in here and knock it on the out. There we go. Let's take a listen. All right, that's working for me. You know, obviously it seems like I'm dancing without anything. And, you know, ideally we'd have animated or had a beat in mind when we animated, and I'm just learning, so I haven't even learned how to do that part of it yet. But let's go down here to the music category and see if we can find something that might sort of fit our mood. I could maybe get behind that. So go ahead, and it's already recorded it, so I'm just gonna pop it in here, drag it all out, and I could again bring in the stems if I wanted to have control over it, but I'm just trying to do this as sort of a quick exercise for myself, right? And gotta be honest, this is almost exactly like how I would dance, completely out of rhythm. It's wonderful. So let's take that. We'll have it cut out when the light goes off. Bring down the volume a little bit, and let's play it through. Final hit seems a little off, maybe because we want it more on the strike of the pose and let it ring out over that. Let's see. That felt a little better. And so you could quickly see how this went from absolutely nothing to having a little bit of life. Is it perfect? No, but it gives me that great sketch to show proof of concept, proof of life, proof of, hey, my animation isn't quite as bad as I thought. Thanks for joining. Hope to see you next time. James David Redding III, over and out.
GDR3 Productions.